Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This morning is the Author's Corner on the Own It platform. And every Tuesday we get together and we have a theme and we have an inspiring conversation because we always have authors that have something to add, something sometimes new and different, always inspiring, and always to share with our subscribers, our listening audience, ways that they could utilize these tools. And one of the things that I came across, it's been around for a while, but in healthcare, now shared stories are starting to gain momentum. And by that, I mean human behavior is such, and I'm going to relate it right now mostly to the medical field, where with healthcare, a lot of times as patients, we'll continue to do something that may not give us the absolute benefit that we need, or we may not improve as much as we should. And you see that a lot with chronic types of illnesses. You see it with heart disease, diabetes, things like that, where people will keep doing what they're doing because that's what they've been conditioned to. And the brain likes to keep you in that space because the brain wants you to be comfortable. We don't always need to be comfortable, but the brain will say, hey, why do you want to try something that isn't proven? Well, what they're finding is that if other people will share a story of maybe they tried something. I'm saying I'm using things like yoga, meditation, say, and or maybe they've lost 30 pounds and their blood sugar has really come down and they've come off of medication. Somebody reading that story now says, huh, okay, this person's an everyday person like me. They're not an expert, they're just Joe Smith or whatever. If it worked for Joe Smith, maybe I should give it a try
Mhm.
because now I'm becoming open to it. And you're transforming that brain to say, let me try and let me find out for myself what benefit could I get from maybe adding this, maybe changing a diet, maybe adding meditation, maybe even doing something in functional medicine or complementary medicine that you were reluctant to try because maybe quote unquote you thought it was medical voodoo, but it's not. So that's our topic. I'm Teresa Palmer, author of Heal Your Heart from Within, Own It contributing author, Phoenix Fitness Fanatics contributing author. And my book talks about, I give people the knowledge and the tools, but I also share personal patient stories of how they were helped with the modalities that I use in holistic cardiology. So with that said, I'm going to go to Dr. Durain and get her take on what we're talking about.
Good morning, everyone. And it's so good to be back with my Own It family. You know, Teresa, I love this topic because I think everything that we do is a story and we can share it with someone else and they can benefit from it. I'm on and I'm sure Tiffany will like this. I'm on this weight loss venture to lose 30 pounds and I'm almost there. And people say,
Yay.
how do you do it? And I tell them, I said, well, I'm like the football players. I do 2 a day. They said, well, what does that mean? I said, I'm walking in the morning, I'm working out, and I'm walking or working out in the evening, and then I'm changing my diet. And so they asked me, what have you done? I said, well, I've cut out a whole lot of sugars. My children tease me because I make 2 pitchers of lemonade anytime. Well, actually, I make 3 pitchers of lemonade. 2 of what we call diabetic lemonade, which is extra sugar, because that's how I used to drink it. And then for me and my daughter, I have a pitcher of regular lemonade that doesn't have a whole lot of sugar in it. But when I love the diabetical lemonade, but once I took all that sugar out of my diet, my taste buds changed, my preference changed. And so I shared that, that's what I do. It's not only working out, but it's also changing my nutrition. Now in Christendom, in the body of Christ, we live from other people's testimonies because God is not a respecter of persons. So what he's done in one person's life, he'll do in another. And this is one of my favorite scriptures. I share Revelation 12 and 11. And we overcome the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So I can share what God has done for me, and someone else will be encouraged to do the same thing. It's just like, fasting and prayer. They said, well, how did you do that? I said, well, I went on a fast and I prayed. And they said, well, what you mean? I said, well, the Bible says some things come through prayer and fasting. And they go, oh. I was like, try it. And then, I always tell people, I said, let me tell you something. Accept Jesus Christ. If you don't like it, the devil will always take you back. And, we'll laugh about it. But in the body of Christ, we live off of stories. We thrive on the testimony of others because we believe, okay, if God says he's not a respecter of person, okay, Lord, you did this for her. I need you to do the same thing for me. And we come together in agreement in prayer, but is encouraged by our stories, which we call in the house of God, our testimony.
Yeah, so it's like a parallel. It could be called testimonials. And I remember a time when on websites, like for medical practices or health grades or anything like that, it would always say patient testimonials.
Yes.
And, somebody would write, I had this kind of experience, or I did this, or I did that. And people use that on their personal websites. My website is still being revised. It's getting there, thankfully, because now I have somebody that could really do the work.
It makes a
Costing me a
difference.
little bit more. Yeah, it costs a little bit more, and I learned from it. So what I decided to do instead of having testimonials, because I couldn't use patient names, there's HIPAA privacy acts, there's all sorts of things that if somebody recognized something could say, oh, that's Molly Smith that I saw in, Teresa's cardiology practice back in 2018. You can't have that. So what I did was instead, I did personal stories and I contacted my patients, or my former patients, I should say, and I told them what I was going to do, change the names, change the situations. So I have two like really strong stories of how people were helped with some complementary and Eastern modalities that work together with Western medicine. So instead of testimonial, I'm using it more as stories. And now I would like to go to Tiffany because I think she's kind of the queen of stories because she's been involved with a lot of anthologies.
Hey, before Tiffany comes on, can I add one thing to that, Teresa?
Sure.
Nowadays, and I'm sure y'all see this, every doctor's appointment that I have, they send me a follow-up. And can you rate me? What did you like about it? Who did you work with? And then they ask that important question, can we use your name?
Right.
So you can do that. Every doctor's appointment I have, I said, well, when did they start this? Everybody is doing it. So if you ask, can we use your name? And they give you permission because it's not your words now, it's their words. You are able to use it because we've given you permission to use it. Just a thought.
Yeah. The difference is though you're not sharing personal medical information. When they're asking you to rate them and all, they're asking you about the experience. So they're not asking you specifically about, is this medication working for heart disease or has this happened with your diabetes? So they're not violating any HIPAA, but it's a great idea. It's a great idea to use those things. Some of them use it for ratings to make sure that they're in a certain percentile. But I think overall, when people have a good experience and they share it, and the same thing with a bad experience. If you have a bad experience and you share it, it brings the awareness not only to the other people out there, but also to the provider. That's a very important thing because if I say I didn't have a good experience at so and so's office, the wait was 2 hours, this happened, that happened, then they look at it and they say, how could we improve it? So, these stories just are so important from so many perspectives, so many perspectives. And now I'd like to get Tiffany's perspective on it.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you, Teresa. Dr. Dream, first off, congratulations on the weight loss journey. I
Thank
am proud
you.
of you. I am so proud of you. Oh my goodness. And life is definitely a huge story. And I am the queen of storytelling because I've been able to share my life experiences and really be able to impact lives. I released 118.7 pounds to be just exact. Okay. I went back and I was looking at my journals and stuff, and I'm like, whoa, okay, now I have the exact 118.7 pounds. And people wanted to know how I did that, because a diagnosis of diabetes and just, them saying, hey, you know what, if you don't make some changes, you're going to start losing some toes, and you're going to start, things are going to start happening, vision, you could die. That kind of shook me up, so I started on my own journey and started sharing it. And as I'm sharing it, others are releasing weight. Others are releasing the mental stuff that was holding them back, because believe me, I was releasing a whole lot of mental stuff, toxicity and all that stuff. As I started writing it and sharing the story, it also helped me to heal, because there were certain things in that journey that I was still a little stuck on, maybe conversation that I maybe had with someone that was just, and we weren't talking, whatever that was. I was working through things too. So that being said, me healing through my own story, sharing, I wanted to share with other women's stories. I started the Girl Powerhouse Network because I got laid off during COVID, and I needed others to talk to. I needed others that had maybe been through some of the same stuff that I had been through, or it's just people that could encourage me to keep pushing through. And as I was listening, as we were growing as a community, I'm listening to all these amazing life experiences. And I'm like, whoa, there's people out there that are struggling with like not even a quarter of what you overcame. And they're really struggling. We need to write these stories down. We need to write them. We need to get them out there in the world, because that's going to help people say, wow, I'm not alone. Or, wow, you know what I'm going through right now? Damn, it's not as crazy as I think it is. Right? Because that one right there, she got through cancer. Or that one right there got through raising kids, at a young age. That one right there got beat down and got paralyzed, but still got up and kept working to thrive. Those stories can just encourage and impact the world and change so many things. So I will continue to share my stories as I'm moving through my journey. I'm moving to the Dominican Republic. I'm living in a tiny place after selling my home. And believe me, living in a tiny place, a 16-foot trailer with my husband and the dog, that's going to be a story all in itself. So get ready for that one, because it has been really, really just, yeah, there's people out there that I know would love to do what we're doing right now. So yeah, that's my take on it. I love sharing stories, and anyone out there that wants to share your story and you need some encouragement, reach out. I'll help you to birth that story, because we all have stories.
And
Today.
congratulations on your weight journey. Oh my goodness.
Oh
I
my
just
goodness.
celebrate you. Woo, woo, woo. That's exciting.
Oh,
Yeah, it's the stories are so inspiring, and it's such a wonderful thing to share stories. And one thing I've come across with myself personally is that sometimes I'm not sure how much to really share. Um, just recently somebody had shared something with me, and I had gone through something similar, but there was more to my story. Um, some other things had happened that I didn't know whether to share it or not with this other person. So I shared so much of it and said, I had a similar experience. was something that happened with somebody in my family, similar to what happened with you. And I thought about writing the really more personal things, the really more personal challenge. And then I hesitated. And I landed up not writing it because I didn't know how comfortable I felt. So even though I gave this person the shared story and the information, I could have given them a little bit more, but I held back because I thought, wow, this is so personal. I don't really know if I want to share it with somebody that I just kind of know professionally. I don't really know them as a good friend or anything like that. So I'd like to get your take on that, Dr. Durain. How do you decide how much you're going to share? And are you ever hesitant about what you're sharing?
Well, if Tiffany is the queen of stories, I am the queen of oversharing. I tell everything. I don't leave nothing out. I tell the good, the bad, and the ugly. And this is not grammatically correct. I tell when the good get gooder, and I tell when the bad got bad, and the uglier got ugly. And my children would say, "Mom, why you have to tell everything?" I said, "Because I'm an open book. I no shame in my game." And I think if, let's say I share something, so one aspect of that might encourage somebody else. But when you share that sometimes embarrassing stuff, there are so many people, more people that can relate to that, that are afraid to tell anybody. And then they'll say, I was kind of ashamed to tell that, but since you done told yours, I feel more comfortable telling mine. It's about the first book I wrote. I am royalty. I am who God says I am. I put everything out there in the beginning because I wanted to encourage people that even though I went to I was at a low point in my life. I mean, I've been on welfare, so I know what it is to be without. But God blessed me and brought me to the position that I am. And I have a book that hopefully will be out in 2026. And it's From Welfare to Fair and Well. As a single mother, a lot of women can relate to that. And a lot of women who have gone to college and had children and they were not married, who thought that their life was over. Well, I can tell them that it's not. I had 2 babies and I had a full academic scholarship. So I was not giving up my scholarship because that was my ticket out the ghetto. With my 2 babies, I caught 5 or 6 modes of transportation because I didn't have a vehicle. I commuted from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to Cheney, Pennsylvania for 3 years on public transportation, and I graduated with honors. And I tell that story not to celebrate having children out of wedlock, because the church folk will say, "Oh, don't tell nobody." Yeah, no, you got to tell your story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because God, that's me overcoming the blood of the Lamb and my testimony. And so I tell them that to say, yes, you can do it. So I can talk to some of these young girls that, unfortunately, I've had kids, and I was an elementary assistant principal and had 2 young girls that had babies in elementary school, which broke my heart. I've had girls in middle school, and then I've had girls in high school, and I can let them know, look at me. I was you at one time. Now, maybe I wasn't in high school or middle school or elementary school, but I had a child early in life and I wasn't married. And God gave me the determination and the perseverance and the strength to overcome that situation. And I tell my family, that's more of a reason for you to be success. Because now you have someone else that's dependent on you. And you don't have to depend on welfare. You can make it, but you got to be determined. And you got to not be afraid to reach out and say, I need help. Mm-hmm. So I do. Teresa, I overshare, honey. My children tell me that all the time. And I'm not going to stop oversharing because somebody, Teresa, will be encouraged about that part that you, maybe I shouldn't share that. That's the one you need to share, because that's the one that people need to hear, that will encourage them that, okay, Teresa went through this. I can make it too.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think I have to rethink that and, use it as part of a story, because it really, as difficult as the situation was, it did have a happy ending, which is good. Learned a lot from it. And I think you're absolutely right that I may be a little bit too hesitant sometimes to share things. I know with friends I share a lot, but maybe yeah, maybe out there in public need to share a little bit more. That's a really good point for me to really work on. So maybe I'll test it out on you one day, Dr. Durain, and I'll spill everything, and you could tell me if
Yes,
I
please
should tell
do.
everything or if I should hold
Tell
back a little
everything.
bit. As I had a best
But think
friend
about
one
it.
time tell me, we're talking and I was going on, and she said, "I want you to act like you're on it, like you're being questioned in court." I said, "What does that mean?" She said, "Say only what's necessary and don't elaborate."
Oh, well, I wouldn't be a good witness in court. The judge would say, ma'am, you are talking too much. Can you concise? I was like, I got to tell the whole story. You told me to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So how you gonna leave something out? But Teresa, think about this. When you watch television shows, and we all love these television shows, the juicier the television show, we're like, oh, that was a good show, girl. You got to watch that. Life is the same way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And now I want to hear what Tiffany has to say because I think Tiffany really puts it out there, like you,
Yeah.
Dr. Durain, and really shares everything.
Absolutely. You know what? I think the juicier the better. And as I continue to share in all the different anthologies that I build out and whatnot, because every single one I share a little bit more and a little bit more. So this last one in particular, Unsnapped. I share a situation that honestly I was really like, "Ooh, should I share this?" Because there was another person involved. Actually, there was a couple people involved. I shared a couple stories in there. I never shared who they were. It was just not no names. But people who know me know who those people are. And the situations that I went through, I had to go through it to get to where I am today. And if you read it, you'll understand. But I was like, oh, what if that person like reads it? Are they gonna be upset? Are they gonna be offended that I shared that? Or what are people gonna say? Like, ooh, you let somebody do that to you? Ooh, like how can you're this girl powerhouse. Like, how'd you let somebody do that to you? I had to share it. Heal from it because there was some forgiveness that needed to be done as well on my part. And that I think when we do share certain situations, again, when you're sharing life situations with things that you've gone through with people, just don't say the names. That keeps you in the safe zone. Share the experience that you went through. It's your story. And it doesn't matter what somebody comes back and says, oh, it didn't happen that way. This is my truth. This is how I saw the story myself through these eyes. That's how you share your story. You don't worry about all that chatter out there. Just share your story and share it all. The good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between.
Thank you so much for that. I do have to say that I'm writing a chapter for an anthology, and it's about ascension or radical ascension, getting a new perspective on things, changing. And the story that I share is a true story. And it's a story about a miracle. It's a story about how I had to change my perception because I was with somebody critically ill that I did not believe that they would recover, or if they did, they would recover and be really compromised because of the part of the heart that this had affected. And they asked me to stay with them. They refused hospitalization. The hospital, it wasn't in the United States, it was in a very remote part of a country in Eastern Europe. And I said, okay, I'll stay. And this person told me, I'm not ready to die. And I thought, I have a feeling you're not going to be here when I wake up in the morning. Well, I spent the night there. and it was a monastery actually. And when woke up in the morning, this person's vital signs were stable, and this person continued to improve throughout the day. And it completely, I mean, it took me back so much that it took me really months to realize what had transpired and how it had transpired. But it totally changed how I practice cardiology, how I practice nursing and medicine. It was so profound. And I'm sure there's going to be people that read the story and say, oh, come on. Scientifically, we know that couldn't have happened. You don't have that much damage to your heart. And not only survive, but thrive, that within, less than a year later, you're actually helping these people out in the medical facilities. That just doesn't happen. So, yeah, I guess I do share because I had no hesitation writing that. It's funny, isn't it, that I'm hesitant sharing some personal experiences, but not that. So we have a few minutes left, and I just like to. We may go over a little bit, but I'd like to get both Dr. Durain and Tiffany's take on that. Like, why could I share one thing but not other things?
And I guess we probably all go through that, Teresa. Some things we do share and some things we didn't. But what you did share, I mean, how many people are blessed enough to see an actual miracle? Whether people believe it or not, that's not your problem. Your problem is just to tell the story. And then we have to determine how we receive it. But that most certainly is a wonderful, wonderful thing to share. And hopefully, since you shared that, that will give you that courage so you can be like me and Tiffany and just put it all out there. And the anthologies that I've been included in, and all three of us are Amazon #1 best-selling authors, in basking in his presence, refresh, faith, hope, and love. Everything I share is a personal story because I can't tell anybody else's story, but I can only tell my story. And one of them I did a story. Oh, he's so adorable.
It's my baby.
About myself, and it was entitled "Who Dropped You and Made You Lame?" And it's from 2 Samuel 9 when King Saul and Solomon were killed, and they were going to come and kill the rest of the royal family. And Mephibosheth, who was Jonathan's son, nurse tried to get him out before they came to kill him, and she dropped him, and he was lame for the rest of his life. But King David wanted to know, how can I bless the house of Saul and the house of Saul and the house of Jonathan? And he came back, and they said, well, Mephibosheth is living in Lodabar, which was a modern day ghetto. But then when he came to the palace, King David told him, you will eat at the king's table. And that's my story. When I say God took me from welfare to faring well. But on that journey, I list 4 men who dropped me and made me lame. I list the first one as my mother, my first husband, my second husband, and then I list one as my superintendent. And I say in the book, and he doesn't even know he did it. I don't put any of their names in it, but if you know me, you can figure out who they are. I'm telling the truth. If you have a problem with me telling the truth, that's your problem. It's not mine. I have a right to tell my truth and my experiences. And people were encouraged for that, because just because somebody dropped you and made you lame doesn't mean you have to stay there. You depend on Jesus Christ, and he can get you up. Y'all know I have that word that I created. I believe the God of the him possible, because with him, all things are possible.
Yes, thank you for that.
Tell all your
Thank
stories,
you for that. Yeah, thank you for sharing so much. And Tiffany, anything that you want to add or something that you want to say?
Yeah, when you're writing, you're always gonna be, should I share this? Should I not? And again, it's a lot of times it's the chatter, because you're trying to figure out what someone else is gonna be feeling about it. But if you feel good sharing it, share it. Share it. 'Cause it's your truth. So that honestly, that's all I got on that. Just hey, don't worry about anybody. Share your truth.
Just
Share your truth.
just share it, right? I think this was just such a lively, inspiring conversation today about sharing stories. And I think that there's a lot of people out there listening now or who will be listening to the replay that are going to change maybe their minds, like I'm changing my mind about how much do you really have to share? How do you share? What do you decide to share? And why sharing is important. So I would encourage any writer, any author out there to really start sharing, to start sharing your stories, start sharing on social media. I'm not talking about, some of the silly things that people share, but things where people could get other ideas, where maybe it could enhance somebody else's life, or maybe make them realize and say, hey, if this person could do this, maybe I could do that, and maybe I should give it a try. So, again, thank you everyone for joining us as always. We're inspired to have the panelists that we do on this platform. And until next week, have a great week, everybody, and share your story.
Sorry.